if Chris Paul wins the ring this year, they better give Melo one next year.
Yeah,
They're
I
the
know,
last
right?
of their generation, bro.
And Carmelo gets so disrespected, man. Like, like go on social media or like NBA subreddit and stuff. People are like, "Oh, Melo's just like he's baggage. He's bad in the locker room. He doesn't provide anything for the team." Well, it's like, man, I don't think y'all saw like Nuggets Melo, man. He was like lighting up the league, dude.
It's because he went to New York, one of the craziest media places you could be at, and the East Coast. One of my old roommates was like, "Yeah, the East Coast, we don't really do shit out there. So sports media and sports coverage is one of the biggest things in that area. Like, there's no tech companies. All the companies are industrial, blue collar working. So, like, at the end of your shift, you come home and you're expecting news coverage of sports, and that's why like the whole Tom Brady crazy fanboys is on a different level." Because they're like, oh yeah,
man.
West Coast, they're just, they just cover media to cover media, but they're not a sports, state like we are. So he was just telling me, like, yeah, it's a different breed out there because, outside of your work, there's not much to do. So all they talk about is sports.
It's funny that you mentioned like the whole East Coast, West Coast thing. Because being in LA, right? LA has this perception of being like fake, and all this stuff, right? And so I hear a lot of times it's like I hear a lot of people trash like the Dodgers or Lakers saying like, "Oh, Dodger fans, Laker fans, they're all fair weather fans. They don't care. They're just bandwagoners." And then I'm over here going to like, "Nah, dude. Like the Lakers and Dodgers fan here, they go fucking hard, man. They will fight you, if like you say the wrong thing about the team, So it's just interesting, like this perception of like fandom, like based on like where you're located in the team, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I've yet to experience that on a different stadium, so I will let you know when I go across to Fenway Park how that looks like.
Yeah,
they were saying that a lot about Golden State, right? But but those actually following Golden State when even before Baron Davis and Jason Richardson, they, at least Oakland natives, they were pretty fucking loyal to their team just because they would offer free tickets to come to the stadiums. Yeah. And it was just
that's nuts, man.
It was just a place where they would call it a function, right? And they would just go out there and have fun. But when the success started rolling in, the faces in the crowds started turning from people of color to Caucasian
white people,
white people,
ticket
tech
prices
bros.
went up, and eventually they moved the team on the other side of the bridge to San Francisco, which Dave Chappelle has a joke about that, like all the poor people of color, they're on the other side of the bridge, in the Oakland side on the East Bay. When you make it and become rich, you move over to the other side of the bay to San Francisco, tech companies, all that area. But it's just crazy, and just kind of go off of Steph, man. When we talk about this decades from now, that dude changed the game.
Yeah,
and there's like a lot of people that were for him because he was an underdog, but when KD came in, it kind of like took that whole idea of like a game changer to, oh man, this is just another fucking super team.
Yeah,
he changed the game. I remember how crazy it was if you turned down a layup, a 2-on-1 fast break. If you turn down a layup, the coach would not let you play the next game.
Yep.
Now, if it's a 2-on-1, that dude stops for a 3, change the game. Everyone's doing that shit now.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? That's funny that you mentioned that, because that bothers me to this day. Because like I get, like if you're Steph or you're Dave, you're Clay, right, whatever. If you stop for a 3 on a 2-on-1 fast break, fine. You guys are like the greatest shooters in the game. You can do that. But like everyone's doing that now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount
fucking logo, doing all those things.
The amount of times I see players go up for a 3 instead of a layup on a 2-on-1 fast break, it makes me so mad, dude. Because it's like you're guaranteed a guaranteed bucket right there, And that gets me into like the whole analytics phase about basketball, right? 3s and layups only, and I can go on about this, but it drives me crazy, right? And so like I get it from like an analytics perspective. 3s and layups are the way to 3 layups and free throws, right? Way to go. Cut out the mid range, right? And the Rockets were like the first team to really implement that strategy. And it would drive me insane because there'd be guys wide open. You know, they can hit a 15-footer, no one's in front of them, but nope, they'll run back to the 3-point line to take a three, right? And it was like one of the it was that playoff series like a few years ago, the conference finals between the Warriors and the Rockets. The Rockets took and like missed like 26 straight threes. It's like, try something else. You know, clearly this isn't working, right? And it sucks though because, like, you know, obviously my favorite player is Kobe, right? And the mid range was like his game, right? And I love watching like people go up for like the mid range, right? Because like the variety of moves you can deploy, right? It's just, it makes basketball look so beautiful, right? But now teams are trying to stray away from that, right? Combination of maybe shooters like Steph who show like 3-pointers are easy, and the combination of analytics, right? But then I look at like Chris Paul or like Devin Booker, right, who are not afraid to take the mid-range shot, and it's like, damn, I miss that, right? It looks so nice, but yeah, I mean, Steph changed the game, right? You can, even the playgrounds, right? You see like kids like jacking up threes, even though they're not ready for it, right? Even though their form's off, you know. But you know, sorry I'm talking too long, but I remember in 2015 when the Warriors made their first title run, I was cheering for Steph, right? Because it was so much fun to watch, right? And even after 2016, I was like, I kind of want to see the Warriors win. And then as soon as KD joined the team, I hated the Warriors. I still do. I hate the Warriors, man.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people felt, man.
Yeah,
for sure. Because, like, you know, Steph, he was there when the organization, or he got drafted when the organization was bad. And then they brought in Clay and they were still bad. And they brought in Draymond and they finally started to get there. They brought in Iguodala and they signed for like, I think, a 3-year contract. And that the entire dynamic started to change. They started to, like, they built it from the ground up. They drafted their players. They did it the correct way. And they changed the culture themselves. And you watch this, like, this shy-ass kid become the face of the organization, and then when another superstar comes because he gets beat out, it just becomes an organization you hate. Like, oh, look at this super team. Like, yeah, but they didn't bring in all their players from other organizations, right? They did it the right way. It just ended up being a destination place for a lot of players.
But how do you guys feel about that though? Like the whole growing your team instead of bringing different people from different teams. Like, you know, you have the Nets who basically brought the superstars from everyone to create the superstar team. But then you have other teams that, you know, this is not just basketball, but like we see this a lot in the MLB where they have like their AAA, their AA, and they kind of like create these farms where players really grow and it's more, there's more weight there, you know. What do you guys feel about that? Should teams go grow their teams? Should they just buy their teams basically, or a mixture of both?
Definitely a mixture of both, right? Like, I mean, whatever helps you win, right? And so if it's easier for you to buy your team, you know, go ahead and do that. But I think there's something like nice about having a homegrown team, right? Especially from like if that's your team, because like you watch guys that were developed by the team from when they were rookies, or in baseball from when they were in the minor leagues and stuff like that, right? And they kind of see like homegrown talent kind of come together and help you win. And, you know, it's not just like you know, something to say about like the players themselves, but about your team, about your system, right? It kind of shows that like as a whole organization, like you are competent from the bottom up, you know, and that you can run like a well-oiled machine. So I think there's like a sense of pride that comes with that. But at the end of the day, like from an advantage standpoint, you know, it kind of doesn't matter, in my opinion, whether if it's homegrown talent versus if you just got like a superstar free agent, right? Because if they want to play, they want to play. If it helps you win, go for it. And I know with like the Dodgers, right? I think like one of the highest payrolls in baseball. It's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, the Dodgers are like, they're a bot team, right? But in reality, like half the players in the Dodgers, if not more, were actually like homegrown talent, you know, and people want to use the lack of homegrown talent as like a way to kind of like as an insult, right? But you know, for some teams, it's just not the case. But you know, but yeah, no, but I do see like teams like the Nets where they kind of just like assembled all this talent, and there is this kind of like sort of disdain that comes from it. But I can't say much, obviously, as a Laker fan. So, but you know, I think definitely a mixture of both is good. But at the end of the day, whatever helps you win, helps you win.
Do you guys know if all teams are given the same salary cap space, like at the start of the
in
season?
baseball or
In basketball, for example, we could keep the basketball. I don't know too much about baseball and how
so
the front office works.
so with basketball, the salary cap's the same for everybody, and there's a salary floor, right? So every team has to spend at least a certain amount of money, right? I think like 95% of the cap.
Mm-hmm.
So while that's the same for everybody, obviously there's certain things that kind of help bigger teams than others. So like basketball is a soft cap, right? So like while they say like the cap for a given year could be like 120 million, like certain teams can go over that, right? There's like different exceptions for the rules. Like you're allowed to go over the cap limit to like re-sign your own players. You have like certain contracts you can give out depending like how much into the cap you are. So while technically all teams can do that, smaller market teams that don't have the money aren't willing to pay like the luxury tax to like maintain their players and stuff, right? While bigger teams like the Lakers, the Nets are, so they can. While they have the same like cap, it doesn't always guarantee like equal distribution, right? Like not like the NFL, right? Where the NFL has like a hard cap, and I don't think there's many exceptions to it. I'm not too familiar, but from what I understand is like there's not many exceptions you can get around that, and I think that's part of the reason why I think out of all the sports leagues, like the NFL has probably the biggest, or they have a lot of parity, right? Complete opposite from basketball. And I think with baseball, there is no cap limit. I think there's taxes, right? Like you have to pay.
No cap, no cap, no cap.
Right, and so that's why like teams like the Dodgers can like afford to like pay pay through the nose for all these crazy players, and then you have like Tampa Bay, who has like I think one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. They really have to kind of like moneyball their team to like, figure out like what they can do with the least amount of money, right? But they've been doing pretty well with it. So
yeah, I think it also has a lot to do with the management. Like if they're able to play around with say 200 million, and they can, if they're trying to win now. If I was Brooklyn, I would want to bring in already established players, especially if I don't have draft picks, because they screwed themselves over by bringing in Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce back in the day, and they lost a lot of the draft picks in that process. But if I was management and I wanted to win now, I would go after a superstar like KD, cater to him to try to bring in other people to take pay cuts and all that. Because if you're a money manager, like managing contracts and trying to see what the needs of the team, like that's gonna be a tough spot to be in. Because like if you never get out of the hole, you're fucked and you lose your job, right? And then the next guy comes in, he's gonna have to do something. And the thing with owners and the front office a lot of the time is like, we want to see this right now because we want to see the money come in. The problem with the Warriors when they went to San Francisco this past year, during the bubble actually, was that they knew they weren't going to make playoffs that year or the year after because a lot of their superstars either retired, they left, KD left, Iguodala went to the Heat. Steph was playing mediocre and Clay just went out injury, the previous finals. So they're like, all right, we're not going to make it at least this next year or the next 2 years, but we have this new stadium. So all we got to do is milk the 3 championships. We'll pay it back and, we'll be in good standing. But like I said, the local community in Oakland, they're like, yo, fuck these new owners. Like they're over here still trying to claim the name of Oakland over their jerseys and in San Francisco. I remember the original designer for it was called the town jerseys. He was just like, man, there was no soul left in that place. And like it was crazy because you see a reflective, like when they were playing in the Chase Stadium, or I think that's the name of the stadium.
Yeah.
Or the Chase Arena, you'd see no one in the crowd. Like it was just, it was poetry almost.
Yeah, like poetic justice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I hear tons of stories about like people who used to go to Warriors games before they blew up, for free or for like dirt cheap, and they got the nickname Oracle, right? Just because like fans were just going crazy and stuff like that. And yeah, it kind of sucks, man. Like, when they got good and, the team basically got gentrified, right? And like, like the hardcore fans that have been watching like mediocre basketball for like years, who finally get rewarded with a good team, aren't able to watch them. And it's really unfortunate. Just like the energy does feel different. I think that's part of the reason why like people don't like the Warriors. The reason why a lot of people don't like the Lakers, right? Because it's like, oh, it's just like celebrities, like people who don't really care about basketball, people who want to be there to be seen. So yeah, I really feel for like, old school Warriors fans, right? Like that would suck if like the Lakers moved somewhere else and, I just couldn't afford to go to games anymore, like that would really burn for sure.
That's what makes you appreciate like, sorry, Mark.
No, you're good.
I would say that's what makes you appreciate some players. Like that's why I always appreciated Kobe, because his mentality was like, yo, like people are spending money to be here. I'm gonna try my best to play. I think Kevin and I talked about this, but because the fucking tickets are expensive. I think it was like $300 for up in the booties, and it's like just to watch Kobe play, and it was pretty cool. The same thing with baseball. I see players all the time. Like I'm at least go on bat so they can hear me come up and have my walkout music, right? And so, because right away when fans are excited to see someone, and when they're not, too. It's really quiet. So, I just hope teams. I appreciate the players more than the team to remember why they're there, and it's because of the fans.
Do you guys think that we're talking about like bringing in, players to an organization instead of homegrowing them? Do you think is that the Lakers are in the position they are now because of that? Meaning like they signed AD long-term contract. They got LeBron taking up, I don't know how much of the cap space, but they couldn't find enough pieces to put around them.
Definitely a combination of both, right?
Yeah.
It has to be both. Usually, I would say the Laker way has always been just having free agents, come by like draft picks to the Lakers are like, oh, what's those, right? They're just like bargaining chips, right? But I think two important things happened here, right? So while we're really bad post Kobe, like we would always be in the draft lottery, right? And by some miracle, we ended up with the number 2 pick 3 times, like in 4 years. Some people might think that's sketchy. It might be, whatever. But so we had the homegrown talent, right? We had Lonzo Ball, we had Julius Randle, Ingram, D'Angelo Russell, and all those guys, right? And there was this big contingent of like Laker fans, myself included, where it's like, oh, this is pretty cool, right? Like, we're having this like pool of homegrown talent. They all look promising. We kind of want to do it the Warriors way, right? Where we wanted to, say that we were able to draft all these guys and we won because of that, right? And the truth is, it's like the players are really good, but we were never going to win with those guys. Like we didn't even get close to the playoffs, right? But then LeBron came, right? So here comes like the superstar free agent signing, which totally turns it around because everyone wants to play with LeBron, right? But even in his first year here, right, we had that superstar and we had the homegrown talent, and it still didn't work, right? We needed AD. And so we made the AD trade using our homegrown talent, right? And so I would say if we didn't have any homegrown talent, I don't think we would have had the draft assets or like the trade capital to make that trade in the first place. So the end result is definitely the superstar acquisition, but it wouldn't happen if we didn't have the homegrown talent to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
That's crazy.
But it's like you always have, like, if you think about situations, like we were just talking about the Lakers. I remember when we had Post Malone, Gary Payton, and there's someone else.
You say Post Malone?
Post Malone, Karl Malone. Sorry, sorry, out of mind, out of sight. Yeah, we had Post Malone playing with us, the mailman.
Crazy.
Yeah, I remember that year.
Yeah, and everybody's excited. Me included. I was like, hell yeah, we're gonna win. It's gonna happen. And then you know later on, chemistry, things are coming out, and so that doesn't always matter. And so I always think if you have a superstar, get a superstar that people want to play with, but also that has that social capital or that like relationship with people to be able to bring, because I don't know if you guys know, but like before AD and Ron started playing together, they were really good friends. So it was just like, you want to come to? I'm pretty sure that's how it happened. Hey, you want to come to LA? let's make it happen. I'm pretty sure that's how a lot of players came, and I'm 100% sure. This summer we'll see some like, oh, so and so is going to the Lakers, and I'm pretty sure it's because of what they're doing, and that's how I think it's Westbrook that they're talking about. Supposedly, allegedly, is going to come because they followed AD and LeBron followed the wife on Russell Westbrook's wife on Instagram. So, to your point, more or your question, I think it always ends up being is what does the team value the most, and I think it always ends up being we want wins, and if it is one or the other, then whatever gets us to those wins,
All comes back to company culture.
Company fucking culture.
Mm-hmm.